Guess what, folks? We made it to the last lesson of the year. How excited are you? All right, so the last one is all about the equations of circles. Here is the equation of a circle in its standard form. You take the quantity of x minus h, take that quantity and square it, plus y minus k, that quantity, and you square it, and it is equal to r squared. And what you need to understand is there's an x and a y, and those are the two variables of your equation. But h and k and r, these are parameters. So those are numbers that are going to be in the equation that are going to change every time you see a new equation. And what they do is they change the location and the size of your circle. So the h and the k represent the x and y coordinates of your center. And r, remember this is r squared, so you take the square root of that number, r is the radius. So the only thing that might trip you up is that you have to remember, if this is x minus 2, that you take the opposite of this sign to get the x coordinate. So the x coordinate would be a positive 2. If this had been an x plus 4, you have to take the opposite sign, so this would be a negative 4 for the x coordinate. Same thing that you would do for the y. So rule of thumb is if you have something that's in parentheses or in some grouping, brackets or absolute values or whatever, and you're trying to pull out a value, an h and k, whatever letter they happen to be using for the coordinates, you have to take the opposite sign. So if this is a minus, you make it plus. If it's a plus, you make it a minus. Okay, that's the only thing that could trip you up. Otherwise, this is going to be pretty easy. Okay, so what happens when h and k are 0? So the center is at the origin. Well, you end up just getting this really basic equation of a circle, which is x squared plus y squared is equal to r squared. So let's do an example and see how easy this is. All right, so they're giving us the center is at -1, 3. The radius is 4. We need to find the equation of the circle, and then we're going to graph it. So yes, folks, there's graphing. Pull out that graph paper. Oh, right. So if the x-coordinate is -1, when we go to plug this in, we'll have x minus a -1. So this is going to change into a plus sign. And then the y-coordinate is 3, so we can just plug in y minus 3. And then 4 is the radius, so we're going to do 4 squared. So there's our equation of the circle. So that wasn't too bad. When you go to graph it, what you're going to do, first of all, is you're going to graph where the center is. So the center is at -1, +1, 2, 3, right here. So we put a point there at the center. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our radius, which is 4, and we're going to count up 4 from the center. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to count down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, right there. We're going to go back to the center, count to the right 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you're going to count to the left the same. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so once you have those 5 points, then you're going to connect the dots the best you can to make a circle. Just don't make straight lines and make it look like a square. Okay, so there's my circle. Of course, I have the benefit of a computer that can draw a circle perfectly, but you guys, you don't need to use a compass or anything to make it beautiful unless you really want to. Okay, so that's how easy it's going to be, but of course it's going to get a little harder than that, because it always does. Oops, I should probably get rid of my dots. There we go. Okay, so what happens if you need to just figure out what the radius is and what the center is for your circle, but they give you the equation in this format? Okay, so it's not easy to read off what the center is or what the radius is. So what we have to do is complete the square. Maybe you guys remember that from algebra last year. Complete the square. So when we complete the square, what we're doing is we're trying to create a perfect square trinomial so that we can factor it into something that looks like x minus h quantity squared, or y minus k quantity squared. So what we're going to do first of all is we're going to take this equation, I'm going to kind of separate it out, grouping the x's together, grouping the y's together, but I'm going to leave some space in between. And if this 8 happened to be on the left side, you would move it to the right side because you want that to be over here. It's going to help us come up with the radius. Okay, so once we've done that, what you're going to look at, let's just look at the x's first of all. Let's create our perfect square trinomial over here. We need to plug in a term to make it a trinomial, right? And in order to do that, we're going to look at this 8. Actually, we're going to look at the negative 8, this thing right here, okay? And we're going to pull that out, and we're going to divide it by 2, and then we're going to square it. So negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4, square it, you get 16. So we're going to add 16 right here. And what you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to the other side of the equation. So we're going to add 16 to the other side, too. Okay, great. So next thing, we're going to take the negative 10, okay, so the coefficient there of the y, and we're going to do the same process. We're going to divide it by 2 and square it. We get 25. And then I'm going to add 25 to both sides of the equation. So now what I have done is if I take a look at this part right there, and I look at this part right here, I've created perfect square trinomials so that when I go to factor them, I can put them into the format of x minus 4 quantity squared and y minus 5 quantity squared. So where did this 4 and that 5 come from? Well, it's half of this term is there, half of that term is there. So you already did that calculation over here. It was what you did right before you squared to get the number to add to both sides. And you take the sign of the coefficient. So if this had been a plus 8, you'd have a plus 4. It was a minus 8, so we have a minus 4. On this side, we're just going to add these all up and we get 49. And once we've done that, now it's in our special format that we can read off what the center is and we can read off what the radius is. And then you're done. Okay? So there you have it, folks. All done. Last lesson of the year, last video of the year. How excited are you? Congratulations, you made it. Good job. All right, I gotta get my mouse here so I can end this video. Woohoo! Bye, folks.